Architect Insight, the Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud Consultant Certification. Welcome to another Architect Insight looking at certifications. Today I just passed my Nonprofit Cloud Consultant Certification, and I can tell you there was more to that than I had initially expected. Now, I had done nonprofit work across a couple of different spectrums, from fundraising and also on the grants. But the level of detail on the nonprofit cloud was, I can definitely attest that there's a lot in that product. There's also multiple products. There's the NPSP, there's the new nonprofit cloud, and then there was the grants program management. So it was actually multiple pieces working together. Now, for those of you that are not interested in nonprofits, there was some great ideas and concepts that were brought out in these products. So what I'm going to focus in on is not just if you're in the nonprofit world, but the key elements, the key components of these products that I think are very interesting from an architect standpoint. So we are talking about the under the certifications, under consultant, under nonprofit cloud. And if you're going to follow along, this is a great trail mix preparing for your credential. What we're going to do is I'm going to call out the key elements that I found most interesting as an architect. So one of the key elements is going to be the trail donation management. And this is where we're talking about creating donations which were linked under an opportunity. And what I really liked was that when you automatically create an opportunity marked as a donation, then it'll automatically be creating the payment for you. So if you're assuming, what they've done is they've created it so an opportunity represents somebody donating money, and if 70% of the time they're donating and paying it all at once, it creates that for you. So you create the donation, the grant, and then it'll automatically create the roll-ups. Now, another key element are their roll-ups. They being the Nonprofit Success Pack, have a number of roll-ups which would go far beyond what Salesforce limits on roll-ups can do. Plus, these roll-ups go beyond that of the standard master detail relationship. But what I wanted to share is that they had added a whole capabilities called customizable rollups. And so what customizable rollups do, and you can get this in certain AppExchange products, is allow you to define fields on a parent object, not necessarily that of a master detail, and it will then run a batch process that runs nightly that can process. You'll notice that they are talking about over 80 roll-up summary fields out of the box, and you have the ability to create more. You create aggregate roll-ups, single results. So this would be like summing values. You could actually say the min or the max values. And so from here, you're going to have this concept of customizable roll-ups, and there's this whole step from creating your objects. You create target fields to receive the roll-ups. You even create filter groups on the roll-ups. So the roll-up summaries themselves, again, there are probably some good packages on the AppExchange. The fact that they've implemented this was very interesting. Now, the next bit of logic back to the payments is if you create an opportunity and you create it as a major gift, what it's going to automatically do is if you put in the amount, it'll automatically create a single amount that will represent the payment, mark it as paid, and you can, with one button press, you can leave it for your high probability use cases, or you can grab a button which can remove paid and written off ones, and you can start with scheduling payments and flagging the payments. So this could be an interesting use case when you have an object where you're 80% of the time creating a single child. You could create your own flow, which could follow this pattern, create the child object, in this case, the payment, and then just have a button which can quickly remove them for the 30% use cases. So I thought this was a really nice way of giving ease of use of creating the child off of the parent and giving just a single button for those smaller use cases. And then they have the calculated payments, where if you're going to have a payment schedule, you just have this nice little simple data entry screen. You put in amounts and dates, and it'll generate the payments for you. So this is, again, child object off of opportunity and allowing it to be paid. Now, there are automatic, a lot of processes going in between. Out of the box, here is writing off scheduled payments and saving. So there was some great functionality that could be utilized not just in the nonprofit world. Additionally, I like the reoccurring donations, where you could create a schedule for reoccurring amounts, which could then reoccur on a certain date, a certain frequency. And then I think their batch processes manage the reoccurrence and the generation of the reoccurrence. So this way, here is one where you've predicted the upcoming installments ahead of time, or in other ones, it could just be ongoing. Once you get one payment, the batch process would generate the next. Again, very interesting patterns. And to close off the use case, a nice little action button, email acknowledgement, which will have an automation that sends the email and logs it to the contact record. So this was really nice, rounded functionality for nonprofit that you could take these concepts and apply them beyond the nonprofit world. Not necessarily use the NPSP, but carry these concepts and implement them in other use cases. For those that are studying for the nonprofit, there were this video series, the hands-on, was great. You need to be watching just about all of them like I have. And then we're going to talk about the household accounts. This concept of households, where you have multiple contacts in a household and then linking them together. And this can carry the names of the household. This could have a parent and children. And the relationships are very interesting. So we have the household. We have addresses where each contact gets an address, and each household has an address. So you get this ability with an address object, address overrides. And they even have the ability to carry address changes across the whole household, and to be able to say, if you're, let's say, living in a vacation home 6 months a year, you can create date stamps on addresses, which will then, you'll have a family address, which is then carried over to each of the contact addresses. Right here, they're showing that there is an account address, multiple family members' address, and then it synchronizes the addresses and allows you to have a seasonal address. So address management was very interesting at the household level. The next element, which is something I've implemented before, is relationships between people. And what they're doing in this pack is they're creating reciprocal relationships, friend to friend, family to family, or mother to mother. And what we're doing is we're creating reciprocals. You could have father, son, when you know both are the genders. You could have parent to child, if you're not sure, if you don't know the genders or want to stay gender neutral. And it creates reciprocal relationships. The father will point to the son will point to the father. So these are interesting. You have the approach of a reciprocal method, or the list settings. It knows which gender field to tap into. And it'll check for any duplicate relationships. So this is very interesting on account relationships. And if you're looking even beyond nonprofit and setting up relationships between people, I would definitely look at this pattern and decide which elements of this pattern you like. So the custom relationships are a key element, I'd say, of the nonprofit NPSP and nonprofit, and you could definitely learn from this. So back over to here, we're going to heat stakeholders, and then they also have affiliations. Contact relationships link person to person. This is where you can have a person who works for a company, a person who's associated with a company. So these become affiliations beyond just the typical account contact affiliations. So I really liked these affiliations, and it's a great pattern. I've implemented this before, but I think you can definitely learn from this, from the Nonprofit Success Pack. There were some other really interesting things from the data insights, the national change of address providers, auto-detecting addresses. There were some really great things about keeping the data clean. And one more thing I wanted to share was the import. So as an architect instructor, I've taught about using the bulk data load and how to use, the field for upsert and linking data. What I really liked is in some of my classes for the data architect, I've talked about creating a temporary object where you bring your data into a light temporary object and then have a batch process that spawns and creates multiple linked data. And essentially, that's what the data importer is doing. So what you're doing here is you're bringing all your data into a data import object, which could have contacts and accounts. So it's a flattened import structure with a defined spreadsheet. And then what you do is you define your data, you prepare your data and bring it in. You have multiple sample datas. So you can bring your data in and then you upload it into the target temp object. Very interesting. And you can use it using the standard importer or data loader. And then what you can do is you can do dry run imports where it'll check your configuration, do lookups, match your data, and give you an analysis. And then when you're ready to go, you can bring in the data. And so this will bring in the data, and this could be linking it across many different objects of the MPSP. And it can even give you a nice status number of processed. So that was really neat. Now, overall, to pass the exam, you're going to be having to follow the whole trail, have the experience, which I had the experience, and I followed all the trails, donation management, soft credits, engagement plans, the emailing, the opportunity settings going in. But again, I was sharing you things beyond these. And then down here, general data, campaign management, talking about the sandbox types, optimizers, marketing cloud. And so there is a lot of material in here to cover. Grant management, a whole different system of grant management versus the outbound fund module differences. And then wrapping it up with analytics, reports, dashboards, large data volumes. So there's some great knowledge in here, and it's not just necessary to pass your nonprofit. From the accounts, the contact relationships, the affiliations, going into the data importer, the address management. There's just a lot of really interesting moving parts that were very interesting for nonprofits and were also very interesting as an architect and data architect. So I think this is well worth diving into and learning this great knowledge. Hope this was helpful. Thank you on our mission to help and all of those who work in nonprofits. And thank you for joining. It's www.SteveTechArc.com and SteveTechArc YouTube channel, and have a great day.